He asks me, do you know of the mirror principle? And if so, can you talk a bit about that to help others? So when I first read your question, I didn't know what you were talking about. So I Googled it and then I did know. So to explain to everybody what the mirror principle is, it is a spiritual theory, like a new age spiritual theory that believes that whatever is happening in your internal world is to be reflected in your external world. To me, that was a similar theory than the law of attraction, which I think is essentially saying the same thing. So it might be a similar way to say the law of attraction. What I will say about these types of theories is that I do believe them to an extent. So I'll start by saying I do believe that in the human experience, there is something incredibly creatively powerful about being a human, and something going on that is way more than meets the eye as far as spirituality. And I do not like to get into like cringy white girl yoga type of stuff. So when I say this, I really mean it and I really believe it. Based on my life experiences, I do truly believe there is something more to being human that meets the eye that we will never be able to explain through science. Well, I shouldn't say never. Maybe eventually we could explain it through science. But back to what I was saying, I do think there is some sort of telepathic connection between humans. I've definitely had experiences in my life where I've been thinking about somebody a lot and then they call me the next day. I've heard stories within my own family, actually, like to give an example, when my grandpa died, both my father and my aunt said that they knew it instantly when he was dying. They both knew he was dying. They both knew he was on, what is that? The name just slipped my mind. Hospice. Everybody in the family knew he was on hospice, but both my father and my aunt both claimed that in the middle of the night, like, I don't know if it was 1 a.m, midnight, something like that, they sprung out of bed. This was my father's story specifically. My father sprung out of bed and it was like, my dad died. He just knew it, felt it intuitively. And something with my aunt, she was like driving home from somewhere and she was like, he's dying now. Like, she knew it intuitively. So I believe those stories. I don't think they're lying. So there's stuff like that. I've had things like that. So again, I really, truly do believe there is some truth. There is some validity to things like the mirror theory and the law of attraction. I do think human beings have incredible creative powers that they may never be able to truly understand. With that being said, I do think it's important not to rely solely on this and to accept the fact that some things could happen out of your control. So, and I'm going to get back more to the mirror theory in a second, but I want to make this clear before I explain the mirror theory, because I think it's important to know. For example, there are genuine catastrophes that could happen. For example, if a child gets cancer at 7 years old, an innocent, sweet child that really hasn't done any harm to anybody besides the normal like life lessons of a 7-year-old child. If a child like that gets cancer, I think it's important not to recognize that, oh, his internal world was negative, therefore he got sick. No, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. I do think there are external forces that do not come within yourself that are totally out of your control. However, I do think we have a degree of control in this game of life, whatever you want to call it. And again, I've personally experienced that in both negative and positive times in my life. So for example, there had been times in my life where I had been resentful and bitter towards people who had hurt me. And I remember there was this one specific friend who I felt hurt by her in a pretty significant way. I feel she had broken my trust in a few very significant ways. And I felt I'm very sensitive to betrayal. I'm incredibly sensitive to betrayal. And I think that's related to some childhood trauma type stuff. So I think when I feel betrayed by a friend or a family or a relationship, I go into like full fight or flight, and I have trouble forgetting it. And it could take me sometimes years to recover from betrayal. Anyways, there had been one friend specifically that I was really hurt by the way I had believed that she had betrayed me. And I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't stop replaying the negative memories in my head. And I remember like intuitively knowing and feeling, and I'm like, if I keep thinking about her, she's going to show up. Like, I know it. And I knew that. And then I remember, I think it was like the next day, like the day before, I intuitively knew I would eventually run into her if I kept thinking about her. And then I did run into her. So it's just like, again, stuff like that. It's like that's where the law of attraction and the mirror theory to me do come into play. I do think we have our human brains do have the capacity to shape and mold the world around us. Same thing with positive things. I do think if you work towards something and you pray for something and you shape your internal dialogue about achieving a goal, you will manifest a reality in which you will achieve that goal or come closer to achieving that goal. And again, the word manifest is even cringy to me because, again, we live in this like new age white girl crystal society where people overuse these words and make them gross. But I do think there is a reality to manifestation. And I do think that if human beings do focus on the positive, they could see genuine manifestations of what's in their head, you know? With that being said, I do like, again, that's why I spoke about it before. It is important to recognize that I do believe there are external forces that can overpower these human creative forces out of your control. And I think it's important to remember that. It's important to know that you could manifest the life of your dreams and it could be ripped away from you instantly, beyond your control. You know what I mean? There could be a war, there could be a major accident, a murder, like a sickness, a death. Like there's so many things that could happen. And it's important to, in the process of recognizing your power, to also recognize that you're truly mortal. I said that one, right? Mortal's the one where you could die, right? Immortal is the one where you can't die. I think it's incredibly important to just always remember that no matter how much power you have and capacity and capability as a human being, stay fucking humble because you're very mortal. You bleed just like everybody else. You get sick just like everybody else. So I really believe in having a healthy balance of these two worlds, using your creative powers the best, but then also accepting with radically accepting the fact that it could all be taken away and it could all become chaotic at any second. But yeah, no, that's my belief on the mirror theory and the law of attraction. I think there's some truth to it. You just have to use it wisely and understand that it's not everything either.